What is going on, everybody? Been a diehard Pistons fan since '03 and starting to get cautiously optimistic about this Pistons team. The Pistons are currently 25 games into their season, more than a quarter of the way done, almost a third of the way done with the season so far. So I thought now would be a good time to do another video where I grade every Pistons player so far this season. In these videos, I always kind of just grade them based on how I feel they are performing so far this year in comparisons to the expectations I had set on them to start the year. So if you see somebody that has a higher grade than Cade or whatever it might be, that doesn't necessarily mean I think they're a better player or having a better year. It just means that relatively speaking, they have performed better compared to their expectations I had set for them. So to hop right into it, because we have a lot of players to grade, the first player is going to be Cade, of course, and I have an A grade for him. Cade has been absolutely amazing for us this year. 24 points per game, 7 rebounds per night, 9.5 assists, shooting 45% from the floor, almost 40% from three now. The stark contrast in the way that this team plays with Cade on the floor versus when he is not on the floor is very telling on how impactful Cade is for this team. He doesn't have an A+, and the way that he could potentially get to an A+ by the end of the year is cutting down on the turnovers. He is currently at 4.7 per game. If he somehow magically had like less than 4, would be very comfortable with giving him an A+ grade, because he is on pace to be an all-star right now, which, even though I have high expectations for him, there's not much more you can ask for. But the turnovers are the one thing keeping him away from that A+ grade for now. Everything else, just perfect in my eyes. So moving on, the next player we're going to grade is going to be Jaden Ivey, and he is going to come in with a B grade, slightly lower than what we had him pegged at the last time we did this video. Currently, he is averaging 17.5 points per game to go along with 4 rebounds and 4 assists, shooting 45% from the floor and 38% from three. Overall, I think that it's been a very good year for Jaden Ivey, but he hasn't played particularly great in the past 5 or 6 games, kind of slipping a little bit here, bringing down his averages slightly, and just not being as hugely impactful as he was in some of the games at the start of the year. Am I worried about Jaden Ivey at all? No, not whatsoever. I just think that right now, probably anything higher than a B might be a little bit rich, but overall, all things considered, he has taken a step in the right direction this year, and that's all you can really ask for out of a player in their third year, coming off a season like he had last year. So moving on, the next player that we are going to grade here is going to be Tim Hardaway Jr., and he is going to get a B-. Tim Hardaway Jr. is averaging 10 points per game, shooting 40% from the floor, almost exclusively taking threes. More than half of his attempts are behind the three-point line, where he is shooting 35%. And realistically, it has been a tale of 2 seasons for Tim Hardaway. He started off the year on an absolute burner. He was shooting the ball at a great clip. And then he did have that head injury where he went down, didn't play for 3 or 4 games. And ever since he's came back, he's really struggled to find his stride. So didn't feel too great about grading him too high or too low, because we have seen great versions of Tim Hardaway this year, mostly at the start of the year, and not so great versions of Tim Hardaway that has a lot of people questioning whether he should continue to be in the starting lineup. So I felt like a B- grade is probably right where he should be at for the time being. So moving on, we've got Tobias Harris, and he is going to end up with a B grade. Right now, Tobias Harris is averaging 14 points per game, 7 boards, 2.5 assists. He is shooting 45% from the floor and now up to 34% from three, which might not sound crazy, but considering that for the better half of the year, he was around 28, 29%, that means that recently he has been shooting the ball a lot better, and that checks out from watching the games as well. Tobias Harris is pretty much playing exactly how I expected Tobias Harris to play, which is a player that can consistently get you 15 points per night. You really know what you're going to get out of Tobias Harris, brings a very strong sense of consistency to this team, and I just think that that is great. I think for Tobias Harris, a B- rating is totally fine and really all I've wanted out of Tobias Harris. So pretty happy with his performance so far this year. Moving on, we've got Jalen Duren, and he is going to get a C grade. Unfortunately, this is way lower of a grade than I'd like to give Jalen Duren, but the fact of the matter is that right now he's playing 23 minutes per night. He gets himself in foul trouble far too often so far this year. He's averaging less than 10 boards and less than 10 rebounds, which is disappointing because he did average a double-double last year as a 20-year-old. Only expecting to see him improve considering his age, and this year has felt like a bit of a regression. There was a couple games, including the one against the Raptors pretty recently, where I felt like he has been improving based on his early year performance. But just to call a spade, Jalen Duren has not had a good year when you consider that he was 20 years old last year. All of his numbers are down. Normally at that age, you expect to see a leap forward instead of a leap backwards. But unfortunately, just things like foul trouble and whatnot have kept him off the floor at times, and just can't say that Jalen Duren is off to a great start this year. So hopefully next time we do this video, that grade will be going up. The next player that we have to grade is Malik Beasley. I'll let you guys think about it for a second. You think what I'm thinking? Because I'm thinking that's an A+ for Malik Beasley. Now, Malik Beasley is not our best player on the team, that's for sure. But what he has been the most impressive compared to the expectations I had set for him coming into this year. Currently, Malik Beasley's averaging 16 points per game, shooting 44% from the floor and 42% nearly from the three-point line, shooting 9 per game. Those numbers have been even higher over the last stretch of, say, 10 games. Malik Beasley has just been on an absolute burner. Truthfully, over the past 2 or 3 weeks, it feels like Malik Beasley is the second best player on this team behind Cade. He has been the most consistent during that time frame. He brings an element of floor spacing and shooting, something that this team has greatly missed over the past couple seasons. And there's no way that I would ever expect more out of Malik Beasley, because the way he is playing right now is as good as you're ever going to get out of a guy who's getting paid $6 million per year. So moving on, the next player we are going to grade is Beef Stew, and he is going to come in with a solid A- grade. Right now, Beef Stew, coming off the bench, is averaging only 6.2 points per game and 6.1 rebounds, but his impact goes far beyond the stat sheet. He's doing different things compared to last year. He's not shooting as many three-pointers, but he's blocking more shots. He's playing that backup 5 role, which a lot of times turns into feeling like he's the starting 5 because Duren's been in foul trouble, or Stu just gets minutes with the starters for whatever reason to close games. So yeah, Beef Stew's having a great year, no question about it. So moving on, next player we're going to grade here is Simone Fontecchio, and unfortunately we have to give him a C as well. He's averaging 6 points per game, which is a far cry from the 16 that he averaged with us last year in the short amount of time he played with us. The reason why he has a C, not that he's been awful or terrible or anything like that, I don't think that, but I had really high expectations for Simone coming into this season. I have a lot of videos on this channel from this offseason hyping him up and singing his praises, and currently he's just not living up to those expectations. He did have a surgery this summer, which I do feel like has kind of prevented him from hitting the ground running like we both may have hoped, but do have high hopes for Simone going forward, and do think that next time we make this video, this grade will probably increase. So moving on, we've got our rookie Ron Holland here, and he is going to get a B rating. B rating for Ron Holland is really all I can ask for here, because he is a rookie. He's averaging 5.5 points per game, 2 boards, 3 boards actually, and almost a steal a night. Again, Ron Holland's another player where his impact isn't always going to show up on the stat sheet, because where he has really helped out this team is energy, defensive persistence, defensive aggression, all that type of stuff. He's really got that going for him. So even on nights where he's maybe not jumping off the stat sheet, he will provide you some energy and some defense. So yeah, not really too high or too low on Ron Holland right now. Just really excited to see how the rest of his career plays out, because right now he's really exactly what I expected coming into this year, a very raw 19-year-old. So moving on, the next player is gonna be Marcus Sasser, and Marcus Sasser is gonna get a solid B+ for me. Marcus Sasser did not appear in the rotation at the start of the year, and then finally, I think Ivy had to miss a couple games, and then Cade was out for 4 or 5 games, and during those points in time, he was able to step in and take some spot minutes, and in those minutes, he has done well. He's shooting 54% from the floor, 40% from the three-point line, averaging 6.5 points per game when he does get into the games, and yeah, I'm happy with Marcus Sasser. I didn't have the highest expectations in the world for him, so the fact that he has been able to step up and step in with some of our guards out, I'm pretty happy with that. A couple guys who I did not grade here, Ausar Thompson, just feel like he hasn't played enough to get a good read on anything related to him so far this year, and Wendell Moore just hasn't had a big enough impact along with Paul Reed for me to really grade them one way or the other. If I really had to, probably just a solid B. But overall, this is where I stand with everybody right now. Of course, these ratings are subject to change on a game-by-game basis and just solely dictated towards what my expectations were for them. And right now, Malik Beasley is definitely the most on the team out of anybody, exceeding my expectations, and that's why he is the only player who finished with an A+ here. So let me know what you guys think. If there's anybody who you agree with or disagree with, let me know. Be curious to hear your thoughts. We'll catch up soon.